Welcome to the Enterpriser podcast. My name is Liam Byrne, and today we are here with Luke Boyd, better known as Classified. Classified, for me personally, is one of my favorite hip hop artists of all time. I've been listening to you for a long time.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, and I'm really appreciate you coming here today, taking a little bit of time. I know that you've got a show coming up. I wanted to congratulate you to nomination Juno Award.
Yeah. Nice surprise last week.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Thank you.
So before we jump into everything, what's new? Tell me a little bit about
What's new?
what you're working on in your life right now.
Working on. I actually was just in the studio before I came here. I got like 5 or 6 songs done for this new project that I've been working on.
Yeah.
So kind of been focusing on that right now. We just shot a video on Saturday for one of them. Kind of building a bunch of content, and I'm gonna start putting out in about a month or two.
Cool.
Other than that, raising kids.
Yeah.
Going to basketball practice with the kids, and just enjoying this Nova Scotia life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have 3 girls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a little girl and a little boy.
Nice.
My little girl's in basketball.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like she's really good actually.
Yeah.
She doesn't think she's good, but she's like always the one scoring all the points for the team.
How old is she?
She's 8.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a struggle to like get her to go. It's just like let's go to the game. She's like, I don't want to, but then she goes and she like kicks ass.
Yeah, that's same as my youngest. My youngest is 9, and
Yeah.
I don't want to go to the game. Then she goes to the game. She has fun.
It's a
You got to keep
bunch
her
of fun.
motivated to go out. Exactly.
Yeah.
But my oldest, who's 14, she's killing it. She's on the high school team. She's on. She's only 14, but she's playing the U18, 16 women as well.
Oh wow.
So she's playing a lot of ball. 4 practices a week. So that definitely keeps us busy.
Yeah, cool. So I wanted to start with a story before I get into. I got a couple questions I want to talk to you about, but I want to tell you the story of how I got put onto your music years and years ago. I knew, I grew up in St. John, New Brunswick, and I was involved quite a bit in the hip hop scene when I was younger. I can't rap, but I wanted to when I was a kid, right?
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
That's how I felt.
So I was involved in the hip hop scene. We all knew who Classified was. And for me, growing up in St. John, it was like Classified from the big city of Halifax, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time you're from Enfield, right?
Yeah.
But I remember, but I hadn't really listened to your music. You put out a lot of really great stuff that's gone mainstream and on the radio. But my favorite song that you put out is not one that went super mainstream. It was you and Jordan did "Beating It."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I bought this beater car from this guy, right? It was a Chevy, like 92 Chevy Cavalier, and there was a burnt CD in it. And
That's how you heard it.
and I started playing this music, and then one of the songs came on. It was Beating It, and I was like, "Oh shit, what is this?" Like,
That's dope, man.
Yeah, man.
Gotta love the Bird CD days. But
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the piano melody, and then so it was this crappy car, but I bought it because he had put in these subs in the back, right? And so the beat kicked in for the first time on Beating It, and I was like, oh man, this is crazy. So I was driving my friends nuts for months after that. We'd be drinking and smoking and stuff and hanging out, and like every 6th song I'd like go on my computer and change it and be like, boys, just listen for the beat. Listen for the beat. They're like, man, you played this already. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's an awesome song. It's iconic. And for me, I liked it a lot too, because the whole creation process is involved in the song, right?
Yeah.
And that was what I was still going heavy in my mind, was like trying to figure out if I could ever make this rap thing work, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, that's the same reason why I put it out, because I was so involved in like the making the beats.
Yeah.
And I always found it interesting how you put this stuff together, and being like a young kid in the game. I guess I wasn't yet young. I was probably 25 at this point, but still, compared to now, I still felt young and fresh.
Yeah.
And, it was an idea I had for a long time. And finally one day I was just like, let me just try it, and did it. And it became probably one of my most creative tracks, but one of those ones that people from back in the day will still bring up and mention, like, man, when you did Beating It.
Yeah.
So we do that at our acoustic show, because I never do that at my real, I don't want to say my real shows, but my more late night club, big bass shows. But these acoustic shows we've been doing, where it's sitting down with my guitar player, keyboard player, we've been able to do Beating It live.
Oh,
And
really?
it's been super dope, because I just start
Yeah.
with the piano, start building it out. And the people in the crowd, some people know it. Some people are like, man, he's making a beat live on stage and
Yeah.
go through the motions. So, no, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, so you got to let me know the next time you're going to do that song live, because
Next Friday.
Oh, you're going to be doing it next Friday?
Yeah, at the Lighthouse.
I'm going to be there then.
Let me know, man.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the entrepreneurial journey, of you of Luke, right? You know, you grew up in Enfield. You didn't have a studio. You didn't have a label to sign you, right? So you created it, right?
Basically,
you
yeah,
did it
yeah.
yourself, right? There was a gentleman, quite a successful entrepreneur. His name's Fred George here in Halifax, and he spoke at one of my conferences, and he said something that really hit home. It was like entrepreneurs. I call them enterprisers because that's the name of my company. But the entrepreneur creates their own opportunity, right? And so what I wanted to know is that something that, like, were you born with that entrepreneurial spirit, or was that something that was instilled within you, like when you were growing up, or where did that come from?
I think it's might be something you're born with.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it that way, but I know people that kind of came up the same path, had the same drive as me.
Yeah.
Not the same drive, but the same dreams and goals, whatever you want to call it, but never had that drive. You know, they just be like, I don't want to do this. Like, no, man, we got to do it. Let's go. So, starting in Enfield, just to go back to the start, when I was 15, I never had money for a studio. I didn't know how to make beats. My dad was in a band, so he had a 4-track. Well, he didn't have one. He used to have one back in the day, and he told me, don't go rent a studio for the day. Just go buy a 4-track, because then you can do all your stuff. And, it started like that to meeting Joe Run, who's like a guy in Halifax who taught me how to use my first sampler. But I used to hitchhike from Enfield.
Yeah,
leave school when I was like 15, 16, just because I loved it. Hell yeah. Sometimes I was taking mom and dad's car, get it back in time. But it was just something that it was like a hobby that I was like, man, I want to do this. I want to learn how to do this. And it was like, I think entrepreneurs also find resolutions for problems.
Yeah.
A lot of people will see a problem and go, we can't do that, this. I think a good entrepreneur will go, okay, well, how do we get around this problem and keep it moving? And that's kind of how my whole career was, from got to get beats, okay, I got to get in the city, got no car, how am I going to get there?
Yeah.
To, I want to tour. I don't want to just be in Halifax. Let me set up my first tour of Canada, doing on a Greyhound bus. And, all these small steps and small obstacles that you just got to keep getting over. Even today, like stuff I was doing today is like things I got to get through to get to that next point. So it's not something that stops either. Like, as long as you want to keep that going and keep chasing that, whatever it is, you're always going to have problems, but you got to find ways around those.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big parts of an entrepreneurial spirit. Like you were saying, just in your day, I've kind of functioned through all of my days like that. Is that you come to some sort of an impasse or a roadblock, and I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do to get
what's
to
the solution
to the next part of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and some people I know and friends and family and stuff, you see like something will happen, and then it's just everything breaks down. They're like, well, we don't know what to do, right? And I'm like, okay, well, we gotta write it down.
Start
if we
with
don't
this,
know, right?
exactly. Like
Move
me
one
and my
inch forward.
brother go through this every day. Like my brother shoots all my videos, and like half the time making videos, he'll come up with a problem, and then I'll go, well, let's fix it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, I think it's something you're born with.
Yeah,
For
sure. So who would you say influences you the most in your career? And this can be an artist, it can be family, but who has played the biggest role throughout your hip hop career that you've had?
I don't know if there was one person.
No.
Like if I look at early days, I'd say this guy named Joe Run, who told me, showed me how to use a sampler, taught me about live shows, put me on my first live show. If I'm talking about writing lyrics and stuff like that, I'd say just life, what I mean? I find that super inspirational. My wife, my family, my kids, all that stuff. I don't know if there is one person but then I'd go back to my dad as well, who was in a band and taught me about a 4-track. And, that's why we had microphones around the house, because he was the guy with all the equipment in his band type thing.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of people that, from my DJ IV, like so many people. I couldn't pick one person that would just be like, that's the person that I've been, inspired by my whole life. I don't think there's one person.
Cool. I was watching an interview that you did recently. He was a local guy. I think he might have been from St. John or something. He came out to your house. It might have been a while back. It was after this book was written.
Okay.
He came out to your house and kind of showed him around. He did a little bit of an interview.
Oh,
with you.
yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Fuck, I should remember his name. Super nice guy. Comedian.
Yeah. The interview was on public broadcasting.
Exactly.
I just happened across it at one point.
I got him on Twitter. I could check Twitter. But anyway.
Anyway, when I was watching it, and I'd already, it's funny because all this came together so quickly. I had already ordered your book, and I was just reading it. And then I just happened across this interview, and and it kind of like was like, you know, you really should reach out and like get him on the podcast, right? That's where this whole thing came from. But the one thing that I noticed that you kind of, and you drove this home too in your book, and if you haven't read it yet, you guys need to order it on Amazon, read it, it's really good. But you really drove home, and you mentioned this in your music too, is that you you work as hard as you do to be able to do the things that you do on your own time. Right? That if you want to shoot a video, you don't got a deadline for it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so is that one of like the quintessential, is that one of the pinnacles for you of, and one of the reasons why you work so hard as an entrepreneur is to be able to have that type of life?
Yeah, but I also think I have a problem. Like, I have to constantly be doing something. Like, that was one of the hardest things with COVID when everything shut down. After a month, I was like, what the hell am I doing with myself? Like, finding that purpose every day to go, what am I doing? What am I doing? So, you know, I don't really have any deadlines because I'm my own boss. I'm my own label. You know, no one cares about my stuff more than me. Even now today, like with my managers and everything else, it's still me that's making the phone calls to them. Like, when's this getting done? When are we doing this? And I don't really set real deadlines, but I do. Like, even today, I'm working on a song, which is the 5th one. And my plan is I want this song done by next Friday before my 2 Halifax shows. I just want this off my plate. So, like, I still set, like, rough goals and rough deadlines, but no, I don't. I try to keep it wide open, especially now where it's not as crucial of, how do I say this? Like, I'm not still struggling to make sure I can pay the bills, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of covered that way. This is more of a hobby, but I still treat it like I want people to hear my music. So even though it is a hobby, I still do everything I can to get people to hear this music that I spend all this time on. So there still is rough deadlines, but kind of set by myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that one of the, like, you know, when I first got into entrepreneurship, which was a long time ago, I've been working for myself for 10 years or more. But that was kind of like one of the biggest things that kept me continuing to work for myself was that, you know, the things that I do on my own time. You know, I mean, I've got a conference once a year, so that's like that's a deadline. Right? I got to do that. But aside from that, you know,
you can plan out your whole day and go, this is what I want to do, and if I want to change it, I'll change it.
I want to change it, and if I decide I don't want to do anything today, I want to spend the day with the kids, and I'll just do that instead.
That's what I did Monday. I woke up Monday motivated, worked out by like 11 o'clock, called my wife. I was like, let's just watch movies. I don't want to do anything today. So I definitely have those days, more so I'm doing the work, but you know, to have that freedom, that's a pretty important thing for me, to be able to kind of go, nah, I'm not going to do this today. And a lot of people don't have that freedom. So that extra work.
And haven't even experienced it. That's one of the things I get a lot of questions
100%.
From young entrepreneurs. And they're like, what are some of the biggest benefits to, you know, working for yourself? And I'm like, the number one thing is that I don't have to answer to anybody. I've got all my own time.
Time management, and you do it how you want.
And that is difficult, especially in COVID. COVID was rough because we couldn't hold conferences, and that's my industry, right? Doing events. And we couldn't do events. So I was like, what do I do? Right?
Well, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, because I've noticed that a lot of my friends who are their own bosses or artists or whatever they are, they had a lot more a lot more hard times with COVID, just because, you know, I guess some people weren't going to work or whatever, but it was just hard to figure out what to do with yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, this is what I can't do this, I can't do that. Sitting home with no purpose was pretty tough on a lot of people.
Yeah. And if an entrepreneur who maybe struggled with time management, to then have all that extra time. Like I know a lot of people, they just kind of fell off and went back to working for somebody else. Because
I know a lot of people named shit
they just were sitting around all day, every day, because, you know, their business wasn't making money or whatever. And so they were just like, what do I do? And they're sitting around gaining weight. And so
or
they
hang out with the wife way too much and realize they don't really like their wives. And COVID was a wake-up call for a lot of people. I don't even want to call it a wake-up call. It was just like a shake-up because, you know, put people in a lot of positions that, you know, maybe we shouldn't have been in, maybe it wasn't the best, whatever it is, but made you realize a lot of things.
I did, for the first while, I did a lot of sitting around. You know, we were planning a conference at the start of 2020, and then we had to cancel it because that's when the restrictions started, 2020, right? And so I kind of sat around for a bit, and I was just like, I was really like, what do we do? I waited for a couple months because I thought it was just going to pass. And then
100%. First month, I liked it.
Yeah.
I was like, I was the gym teacher for the kids. You know what I mean? Like, you do that. watch movies, go on the four-wheeler and drink with the boys more. Like, just kind of like,
Yeah.
we're on vacation. And after a month, that was like the first time I ever felt like depression or anxiety in my life. Like,
Yeah.
I was never that person. But when you lose purpose, and I think really just being creative and doing music since 15 has really kept my head in a spot where I never kind of went down a dark path or whatever. But you take that away for 2 or 3 months, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, I remember my first show back after COVID, we were playing the Calgary Stampede. Me and my brother were backstage, and we were about to go on, and my stomach was just doing the weirdest thing. I was like, I've never felt like this.
Really?
Got on stage for 2 seconds, and it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just that, and he's like, that's anxiety. Like, my brother gets a lot of anxiety. So
Yeah.
he knew exactly what it was. And it was just, I feel like a lot of people might have went through that for the first time.
I noticed after the restrictions ended, because working for myself, and then we had an office, and then I got rid of the office, and then I eventually had to lay everybody off because there was no money coming in, right? And so I'm just working for myself, and so now I'm staying at home. I'm not going out at all. I developed some social anxiety when the restrictions lifted and I started going out. I didn't want to be around people anymore. Like I love speaking at events and going out and talking on stage and being around people and stuff like that. But for the first few months after the restrictions ended, like I didn't even want to go to the grocery store. Like I was like, I was having some anxiety.
Like I said, I think a lot of people, like artists, you see a lot of people canceling tours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Carey Price went through it. Like, I feel like a lot of these guys have been going their whole life, girls and guys have been going, every day they're on the road, they're doing this, and then you take that away and just sit at home for a month or two.
Yeah.
People's minds start going, and you start thinking about other stuff, and that can take a toll.
Yeah, the pandemic actually is when I started to. I was still drinking then, and it got really, really bad, and I was like, I needed to realize that I needed to get sober, because I was just gonna waste this entire pandemic not figuring out what to do with the business and just sitting around drunk all day every day, right? But then that's where the conference had a different name. Business partner left. I took over the company, and then I created the podcast. I was like, well, if we can't have a conference, I'm going to do a podcast. I want to keep talking to people. So I started that last year. And then the magazine, Enterpriser magazine, came up. So that kind of put a little bit of revenue back into the company again, doing sponsorships for podcasts and the magazine. And then when the restrictions ended, I was like, we can finally do conferences again.
Go back to it. Yeah.
So now we've got the big show coming up in April, which we're really pumped about.
And you got the podcast going now.
And I got the podcast.
Kind of came out better.
Yeah. I got the podcast. And so if the restrictions happen again, then I've got a podcast and a magazine that will continue to run the business.
Do you think people would listen to the restrictions again?
I don't know, man.
Now because when it first happened, no one had COVID. Everyone was scared out of their mind. Like, if I get this thing, I'm going to die.
I was washing my groceries.
Now every person's had COVID.
Yeah.
Every person I know.
I've had it 3 times.
I've had it twice.
Yeah.
Whole family's had it, unvaccinated or vaxxed, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Still don't know anybody that got sick, thank God.
Yeah.
Died or anything. I think it would be hard to convince. But then again, I thought after a month of COVID, I was like, no one will sit home for a month. And then 2 years later,
2 years, yeah.
Man, people really sat home for 2 years on something we never saw in real life.
Yeah.
Like, that was weird to me.
Yeah. The first time I got it, was the worst, and that was, when I say the worst, it was my body ached for a day, and I just slept for half the day, and I was fine.
I got the cold chills, same thing, 24 hours.
The next 2 times that I had it were like, I just tested positive, surprisingly. I had a stuffy nose, and I was like, oh, I got COVID, right? So I don't know. I don't know if anyone would stay home again for COVID, but
just especially where our society is now with groceries, gas.
I don't know if we can. Like, I don't know. A lot of people. People are struggling to afford groceries now.
100%, man. I see people struggling a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And, you see Nova Scotia power go up this couple of weeks ago. I'm like, what do you
14 to 15% increase? Yeah.
Yeah. After anyway, we don't get to get all that, but there's a lot of things in society that after COVID made me go, the hell are we doing, and why are these things allowed to happen, and why aren't we downtown marching 400,000 people going, no, we're not standing for this?
But everyone was terrified.
Oh yeah, 100%. And at the first, I get it. I was too, man. We were washing the groceries.
Yeah, I was washing the chip bags.
Mom and Dad wouldn't come over. They'd come over, look through the windows at the kids.
Yeah.
Like, you look back how crazy that was, but people scared of the unknown.
Yeah. a little too much maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
So obviously, COVID impacted your career, but you put this out during COVID, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah. I was
2021.
pretty lucky after that first month or two when realizing, okay, I can't just sit around and do nothing because this is what keeps it going. You know, I focused on finishing this acoustic album retrospective, the book. We finished that up
Yep.
and, you know, did some Zoom performances, just tried to stay active somehow, you know, and try to get creative with it because it's just so much different than what we were used to for the last 20
Yeah, yeah.
years.
So I remember reading at one point here in the book about like fans reaching out to you and stuff like that, and I kind of have I guess maybe a similar story, and it was something that I really never pictured that was going to happen. Like so, aside from the podcast and aside from the conference and stuff, I also have a fairly successful social media presence on TikTok,
Mhm.
and I mean it's just complete bullshit. It's like comedy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
he's doing
stupid
funny
stuff,
stuff,
but
skits. Yeah,
but
yeah.
it actually blew up. I had a couple 100,000 followers
Nice.
on it, and I started getting messages from people. But they're like this is some serious stuff here. Like they were like one lady, she was like, you know, my cancer or my husband has cancer, and so every morning we wake up and check to see if you put out another video to start our day off with a laugh.
Yeah,
You've been
yeah.
helping us get through cancer, and I was like, and there's
Puts it
another.
on you a little bit, eh? But
Yeah,
like not
and
in a bad way. Like the
no,
fact that
no.
you feel like you can do something like this.
I never
and it can
pictured
help
that.
people. Yeah.
Shit posting on TikTok that would blow up, and then people were like, there was another guy messaged me, and he was like, I was thinking about ending my life. He lives in the UK,
Yeah.
thinking about ending my life, and came across your channel, and now I watch 2 or 3 of your videos every day, and you've completely like changed my outlook.
Powerful,
And I'm
man.
like, what?
Yeah.
and
100%.
and I know you must get messages from people too.
100%. And it's the same as you. It's like not something I'd ever thought like, oh, I made this song. Like the first time I think I put it in the book would have been the song called All About You.
Yeah.
Which was on the same album as Beating It.
Yeah.
The one we were talking about earlier. That song, people still to this day will hit me up and be like, man, I had people say like I was heading to the train tracks. I just wanted to jump in front of a train. I was in the car
Something else.
waiting. I heard this song and you hear like I got goosebumps talking about it. Like things like that when it happened, it makes you go, wow. I never knew music was that powerful. And that's kind of why I take it, not kind of, that's why I take it so personal and put so much into this music is because I know besides helping myself, it does help other people too.
Yeah, it's it feels like a little bit of like I think of those people now, even a year later or 6 months later. Like when I'm putting out like stupid videos, you know, every once in a while I'll tag one of them or I'll just message them and ask them how they're doing and stuff because I think about them now. Like that's
Yeah,
that's
it's a part of your life now.
responsibility now. You know, like I didn't.
Well, someone's saying you saved their life.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how many times have you done that in life? So, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to think about those moments.
I know, yeah. So I a couple before we end, I just a couple of questions I wanted to ask you more about music. You've worked with some really cool people, all people that I grew up on D12. Like that was my favorite.
D12?
If you folks
I got to
listen
tour with D12.
I know,
a few
yeah,
times too, like
exactly.
over Germany through Canada.
Yeah,
Those were fun times. All great guys.
Joe Budden.
Budden was there,
Snoop Dogg.
voice. Yeah.
Yeah. You play with a lot of people that I grew up listening to. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite artist that you worked with?
Oh, Snoop.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What's he like? What's Snoop?
exactly what you think he is.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why he's so successful. That's why he can do Martha Stewart or Jay Leno
Right.
or go hang out with Dre or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Snoop is who he is. So, and you know, when I was like 14 and Doggy Style came out, that was my favorite album.
Yeah.
To ever think that I would do a song with them and it being a hit, like a gold record, that's like bucket list for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I saw Snoop live once in St. John. I was still in high school, and it was actually my first like big concert I had ever went to. And man, that was like you say he's
That's
like
a good first concert. My
Yeah.
first was Bon Jovi, so
Oh, really?
which is like still cool,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
to have Snoop as your first, that's pretty
Snoop
dope.
was my first. I had had just started like getting into drinking and smoking weed and stuff like that at the time, and there was just people were smoking everywhere,
Yeah.
and he was on stage with a huge blunt, right? Like, and so when you say he is like what he is, like he just came on stage and like it was. Everyone just lost it, right? And he was
Yeah.
just standing there, and he just pulled out the biggest joint in the world, started smoking it, and then you look around the crowd, and there's just
Just a
puffs of
whole go.
smoke
Same thing. I
everywhere.
saw him at the first time I saw him was at the Metro or the Scotiabank Center.
Yeah,
And we had like top seats, and it was the first thing he came out smoking. Everybody just pulled out.
Pulled it out, started
Security
smoking.
couldn't do anything because everyone was smoking.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was Yeah, but yeah, Snoop is exactly what you think he's
Yeah.
gonna be. Like we recorded our song at a hotel in Truro. He was here for the
Really?
Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
we were my management and his management were talking for a couple months before this. As soon as I found out he was in Truro, I was like, man, you're 20 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
So he was supposed to come to my house at one point. He canceled, so I brought a studio to him, and we just hung in a hotel room. He came in, kind of feeling because he didn't really know me. We did a couple shows, but doesn't really know me that like a real relationship or anything. And then hung out for maybe 10 minutes, and then his bodyguards and everyone were there. And then he just sent the bodyguards out. It was like his day manager, him, me, and my boys. And he just started pulling out joints,
Yeah.
smoking. And then it was just like, this is it, man. This
Yeah.
is hanging with Snoop smoking. So
That's kind of one of those aha moments. It's
Oh,
like,
definitely, man.
I just hit one of those like life goals.
that
right?
was it. And then when I took his vocal home back to my studio on Monday, I remember Monday morning waking up, going to the studio, taking his vocal, and then putting it on the track and starting to work on it. I remember just thinking, like, man, I'm cutting up Snoop's
Yeah.
vocal that I recorded on Thursday. Like, this shit's,
At a hotel in
shit's still
Truro.
crazy to me. Yeah, exactly.
Did you, I know that you were in, the last time I saw you was a long time ago. You did a show in St. John, right? There was a nightclub in St. John. Were you
Lot
with
of them.
D12 at the time?
Oh, and
Or a couple of guys from D12?
Yeah, when we did the tour, it was just Bizarre, Kniva, Swifty, and then another guy. It was only like 3 or 4 of them.
This would have
Did
been.
we hit? I don't. Man, what year would have this been?
Oh, man. Well, I still live in St. John's. It was over 10 years ago.
I went on tour with him in 2012, 2011, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Which I guess would be
remember
10,
you
11
were
years
at
ago.
a nightclub there. One of the
I
guy-
played St. John many times.
Yeah, yeah.
St. John's actually one of my favorite places to play in
Oh, really?
the Maritimes now. Never used to be.
No?
St. John used to be like, eesh.
Yeah.
But like the last 7, 8 years, I love St. John now. I played there more times than any other place in the Maritimes probably in the last 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, you were there, I remember, and so you were at a nightclub. One of my buddies, Kyle, was there, and the nightclub the show was over. Nightclub was closed.
Yep.
I knew the guy that owned the place, so I kind of like stuck around, and it was a group of people up on stage smoking and like freestyling or whatever, and I was like trying to like edge my way over, like come up on the stage, and I was like trying to get in on the smoke that was getting passed around. And some big dude just like grabbed me and like pushed me off the stage. He's like, "Get out of here, man!" I was really drunk, and I was
Okay.
like, "Oh, damn."
Because you said that was with D12?
I
Or
don't.
you
I,
wa-
ca-
you're
I
not
can't
sure?
remember.
Okay, okay.
I don't remember a lot about that part.
I
part of
never
my
had
life,
a
but
bodyguard, so probably wouldn't have been. I'm trying to think who would have been a big. Might have been just one of the security guys.
I
there,
think it was just
guess.
one of the
Yeah,
bouncers
yeah.
or something like that. But anyway, they kind of realized that like I wasn't supposed to be like up on stage with everybody else.
Shut up. Come on, bud.
Yeah, I was like,
Just trying to get a piece.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, before I end, I wanted to bring up one last thing. I know that you said it in the book, you say it in your music sometimes, or it kind of feels like this is your last hurrah,
Mm.
and then you end up putting out something else awesome, right? It's not your last hurrah, right? You're putting out more stuff. It's going to keep going.
Yeah, I'm already 5 songs into
Yeah,
this new
exactly. Yeah.
And I try. Like I felt like Grateful was really kind of the album. I was like, this is it. I made like 18 tracks. I ended the album kind of thanking every person in my career, from video directors, old managers. I really felt like that. What else am I going to rap about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But then something shoots in the mind. You might go roll up a joint, make a beat, and all of a sudden I'm like, come on, I want to make. Like I still like it. I still have fun.
Yeah.
I still enjoy the craft of making beats, writing, recording. So I'll always do it. Will I always release it? Maybe not. But I'll always be in the studio messing around.
For sure. Well, Luke, I really appreciate you joining us today.
good, man.
It's been an awesome chat, and yeah, I'll be at your show next Friday.
Wicked. Let me know.
All right.